Spain, a beautiful country on the western shores of the European continent. Today a member of the European Union and one of the largest economies on the European continent. Bordering 3 countries in Europe and 1 more in Africa, Spain presides over the Herculean gates to the Mediterranean that separate it from the Atlantic Ocean. Spain is best known for its love of Christianity and enjoying time off, while also infuriating German businessmen. Meanwhile, on the other side of Europe, Romania, a beautiful country straddling the lines of Central, Eastern, and Southern Europe, following the Danube River that flows into the Black Sea and the Carpathian mountain range that outlines the spine of Romania. Romania is best known for harboring international Spanish criminals and vampires, while also infuriating Austrian businessmen. But what do these 2 nations have in common? Both can trace their origins to the Roman Empire, with each being the territorial limit of Rome in continental Europe, being the farthest west and east the empire stretched in Europe. So that begs the question, what impact did Roman colonization have on Spain and Romania, and how did Rome colonize these 2 nations a continent apart? Before Rome, the Iberian Peninsula was extremely decentralized, and included many different ethnic groups. In the east, there were the Iberians, which spoke a pre-Indo-European language, potentially similar to Basque. They had many Greek influences in their architecture and art. However, their religion was more similar to the Phoenicians. This was because the Phoenicians and Greeks had both established many colonies along the inner edge of the Iberian Peninsula, which they used in an attempt to establish trade routes from Iberia to their homelands in the eastern Mediterranean, with the Iberians being the main peoples that the Phoenicians and especially the Greeks interacted with on the peninsula. The Greeks would go on to name the peninsula after them. A large part of the Iberian Peninsula was also under the control of the Celts, ancestors of today's Welsh and Irish, which would bring their sense of mysticism to Iberia. However, more importantly, there were some groups of Celtiberians, who were similar to both the Celts and Iberians, and would be extremely impactful to the history of Iberia. Then in the north, there are the Basques, a pre-Indo-European group whose origins are unknown. What we do know is that they were one of the first groups in Iberia, and due to their isolation, they managed to remain mostly undisturbed from before Rome until the modern day. In the west, the Tartessos were an extremely wealthy group that many claimed were the survivors of Atlantis. However, not much else is known about them. All we do know is that they were not Indo-European. The Phoenicians would eventually be brought to ruin by foreign influence in their homeland in the Levant, leaving their colony of Carthage in North Africa to rise to prominence and take over control of the empire. By the time of the First Punic War in 264 BC, the Carthaginians had greatly expanded the control of the south of Iberia. Meanwhile, on the other side of Europe, pre-Roman colonization, the territory of Romania was united under the Dacians. The Dacians weren't always one united group, but they were typically the same ethnicity and spoke a single language between them, theorized to be in the same Sprachbund as Illyrian and Thracian, and subsequently modern-day Albanian. The Dacian kingdom at its height, under the king Burebista, expanded across modern-day Romania, Moldova, Hungary, and Slovakia, and parts of Bulgaria, Serbia, Ukraine, Poland, and Czechia, annexing many Greek colonies along the Black Sea, which brought them into opposition of the Roman Republic, and later, Empire. Julius Caesar created plans to invade the Dacian kingdom following his civil war, as Burebista had supported Pompey throughout the war and had been antagonizing Caesar since. However, both Caesar and Burebista would be betrayed by their senates within 1 year of each other and assassinated. After the assassination of Burebista, Dacia would be fragmented into many smaller kingdoms. However, they would be reunited under the Dacian king Decabulus, who continued to be a regional rival to Rome. So with the field established, how did the Romans actually go about colonizing the 2 countries? In Iberia, the process of colonization was a gradual one, taking a total of 201 years between the beginning and ending of colonization, between 220 BC and 19 BC. Beginning with the Punic Wars, Rome began the process of conquering Iberia from the Carthaginians who previously held it. Rome decided to annex Iberia initially in an attempt to create a bulwark against Carthage, and any other potential rivals coming from Africa to stop their advance towards Rome by land. With legions being stationed in cities such as Tarraca, Carthago Nova, Gadir, and Italica. These legions would then, upon their retirement, be granted land around these cities to settle in with their families. Initially, the Romanization attempts were met with fierce opposition as both Hispania Ulterior and Hispania Citerior revolted against Rome. But in 196 BC, Cato the Elder would be sent to deal with the revolts. In his attempt to pacify the region, Cato forced standardization onto many of the locals, forcing them to be more Roman in the way they lived, through forcing them to grow wheat for the Roman military to subsist on, instead of their more nomadic and tribal lifestyle they had before. In 187 BC, the Romans expanded their sphere of influence into Iberia by going to war with the Celtiberians. However, it wasn't until 182 BC that the Romans really started pushing deeper into Iberia. During this first Celtiberian war, the Roman general Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus would, through negotiations and kidnappings, make alliances with many important Celtiberian tribes and use them to pacify the region. Gracchus' strategy of negotiations with the local tribes were an extremely important part of why Rome managed to hold on to Hispania without too much fighting, as Gracchus negotiated better deals with the locals regarding the previously mentioned standardization grain farming, along with allowing them to maintain their local towns instead of moving them into Roman colonies, as long as no new fortified towns were created. In general, the Romanization of Hispania took a long time, and this was for many reasons. Rome chose to work alongside the local pre-Roman tribes and allow them to continue existence as political entities, meaning that they could continue to pose a unified resistance. This also allowed the local cultures to continue existing in strong numbers, instead of forcing many locals to become Roman through speaking Latin and participating in Roman culture. Especially important was that Rome allowed the pre-Roman civilizations to remain in their local cities, instead of forcing them to move to Roman colonies, which would have sped up the process of Romanization. The Roman conquest of the Iberian Peninsula was also a long process, so the mostly nomadic tribes could continue to pass out of the empire and intermingle with groups that were free of Latin influence, meaning the pre-Roman languages and cultures stuck around in Hispania for far longer. However, the Romans did continue to give land in Hispania to many Roman legionaries, and also set up Roman colonies that were full of Romanized civilians. One extremely important city was Italicum, where two future Roman emperors would come from. Rome held control of Hispania in its totality for 495 years, from 19 BC until 476 AD, when the Imperial Regalia was sent to Constantinople and the Western Roman Empire collapsed. As such, the Visigoths took control of Hispania and would rule it until the Islamic conquests. This long time under the empire would make Hispania one of the most thoroughly Romanized provinces throughout the empire, leaving a large amount of residue in Spanish culture, language, and history. However, in Dacia, the process of colonization was much faster. Prior to the Roman conquest, the Dacians had been a regional rival to Rome, and were an extremely wealthy kingdom due to their extremely valuable iron and gold mines in the Carpathian Mountains. After many Dacian-Roman wars that resulted in the death of the Roman Praetorian prefect, a new emperor was ascended from the city of Italicum in Hispania, one known as Caesar Nerva Trajanus Divi Nervae Filius Augustus, or Trajan, the Optimus Princeps, or best emperor. His first act would be to start the Dacian Wars, so that Dacia could no longer threaten the empire. The first Dacian War was mostly insignificant. However, the second Dacian War was when Trajanus decided he would have no third war. Trajanus would assemble the empire's best generals and begin the second Dacian War, pushing the Dacians back across the Danube River and surrounding the capital of Sarmisegetusa, laying siege to it until a local Dacian nobleman revealed to the Romans the source of the city's water, which the Romans then used to starve the city out. Dacia would then be split into multiple small client kingdoms, with the majority of the Dacian heartland being annexed as a province, in order for Rome to take advantage of the extremely wealthy Dacian mines. Many Dacians were sold into Roman slavery across the empire, as Trajanus, in an attempt to pacify the province, would, according to Eutropius, transplant thither an infinite number of men from the whole Roman world into the new province. An organized campaign of resettling Romans from across the empire would ensure that Dacia began with an already largely Latinized population. The Romans then killed all remnants of the Dacian aristocracy to ensure no one could organize a rebellion against them. Then the Romans either destroyed or converted as many Dacian cities as they could into colonies. forcing their populations to either move to the newly made Roman colonies or adapt to the Roman administration that ruled over the now Roman colonies. Due to this, the Dacians were forced to learn Latin at extremely rapid rates, as their newly found Roman neighbors and the administration that now ruled over all of their cities did not speak Dacian, resulting in rapid rates of Romanization, within a few generations making all the Dacians entirely Roman. Rome held on to Dacia from between 106 AD to 275 AD, a total of 169 years. Dacia was one of the last provinces Rome conquered, and one of the first provinces Rome abandoned during the crisis of the 3rd century. However, Rome still managed to have a massive impact on Romanian society in that time, transforming the Dacians into a thoroughly Romanized population that even to this day refers to themselves as Roman. The effects of the Roman colonization can still be felt today in the modern languages and cultures of Spain and Romania. Linguistically, both Romania and Spain speak a Latin or Romance language. Spanish is primarily forged from Latin, with around 75% of the Spanish language being Latin in origin. However, Spanish has a multitude of other influences. Potentially the voicing of voiceless consonants and the elision of voice consonants, that being adding sounds to words where the sound isn't written, and removing sounds when the sound is written, could be an influence left over from Celtiberian or Basque. Examples of this include the changing of Latin f to Spanish h, and the retracted s found in Spanish, but no other Latin language. Then of course, there is the Arabic influence that is massive within Spanish, especially surrounding topics of military and administration, including words like alcázar, alcalde, and barrio, and legal terms such as asesino, regen, tarifa, and arancel. Romanian, at the same time, is also primarily based around Latin, with 72% of words having a Latin root. Romanian, however, also takes many influences from nearby languages. The most noticeable is the suffix definite article, meaning that instead of having a word for the, like the Spanish el or la, the definite article is added to the end of the word. For example, tree, brad, the tree, bradu. On that topic, Romanian still holds some influence from Dacian, although not much. Some words like brad, tree, and apa, water, are theorized to come from Dacian. Romanian is also heavily influenced by Slavic, due to Romanian being an island of Latin in a sea of Slavs, with around 10 to 15% of Romanian words having Slavic roots, especially around church activities, due to the Bulgarians having spread the Orthodox religion at the behest of the Romans in the region. Meanwhile, culturally, both Romanian and Spanish cultures were forged by the Roman identity. Although more common in Spain, both countries were left with many Roman ruins that played an important role in the early architecture of both countries, such as the amphitheater in Tarragona, the aqueducts in Segovia, the Porlisum fortress in Zalò, and the ruins of San Visegetuza in Transylvania. Both countries today are known for their religiosity, with Romania being the most religious country in Europe, with 99.6% of the population being Christian in 2015, and Spain being historically the largest exporter of the Christian faith. However, only 68.6% of the population being Christian in 2015. Spain was largely influenced by the Roman Catholic Church, which the Roman Empire promulgated under the Emperor Constantine. However, Romania was largely influenced by the Orthodox Church, which the later Roman Empire, otherwise known as the Byzantine Empire, would use as its state religion. Much of Spanish culture has since revolved around Roman Catholicism, which replaced all the pagan pre-Roman cultures that could be found around Spain. However, all the Roman Catholic celebrations are still celebrated throughout Spain, from Maundy Thursday and Good Friday to Easter Monday and Corpus Christi, and of course, Christmas, but also All Saints' Day and the Day of the Three Kings. The week before Easter in Spain is referred to as Semana Santa and consists of Palm Sunday, or El Domingo de Ramos, commemorates the day which Jesus enters Jerusalem, with the inhabitants of Jerusalem laying down palm leaves and their shirts to ease Jesus' donkey's path. In Spain, it's traditional to go to church with a palm or olive branch that is to be blessed by the priest. Maundy Thursday is a celebration of the Last Supper and meant to represent Christ's institution into the Eucharist or the bread during said Last Supper. Good Friday, or El Viernes Santo, is the commemoration of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, under the order of the Roman governor Pontius Pilatus. In Spain, it is commemorated by not eating meat, and many restaurants in Spain make it a tradition to serve fish or vegetables as the specials for the day. Then there is Easter, which is a huge celebration in Spain. It celebrates the rising of Christ from the dead 3 days after his crucifixion, where he left his tomb mysteriously empty while his tomb was guarded by the Roman legions. It's typical for massive processions of marching bands, floats, and a group called Los Nazarenos, who wear a... Well, I won't say I didn't do a double take when researching, but these are older than the group you're thinking of, with them originating in a Roman practice of flagellation, whipping in English. And I'm realizing this isn't sounding any better, but trust me on this one. It was a process where the extremely religious would whip themselves to instill discipline. This was later banned by the Roman Catholic Church, but it would be brought back into fashion by the Inquisition, which would make it a part of Spanish culture after that. Then there is Christmas, which originated from the Roman festival of Saturnalia, but became adapted to the Christian beliefs of the Romans, as it came to celebrate the birth of Christ in the year 1 Anno Domini. In Spain, there are many traditions associated with this time, including the Christmas lottery, El Gordo, where on the 22nd of December, a massive lottery is carried out across Spain, as people across the country keep tabs of the lottery throughout the morning. Then, the winning numbers are sung by children's choirs, as the winners typically celebrate in the streets. On New Year's, it's tradition to eat 12 grapes to bring luck for the next 12 months of the year. Then, on January 6th, the 3 wise men arrive to bring gifts to all the children who have been good. Similarly to Christmas in North America, children write to the wise men asking them for specific gifts. They sometimes take the place of St. Nicholas in Spanish customs, which is interesting due to the fact that St. Nicholas, or Santa Claus, was a Roman nobleman, whose name became known throughout the empire. He gained fame thanks to using his wealth to save young girls from being sent into slavery by anonymously donating enough gold to pay off dowries, by throwing the gold through their window, which one time coincidentally landed in a sock the family laid out to dry. One time he also punched a heretical Christian in the face during an empire-wide council of bishops. Story for another time. But Spain, despite having been a part of the Roman Empire, in modern culture chooses to have the wise men of the Nativity deliver gifts instead of the saint. In Romania, the culture has been far more dispersed. Christian holidays are also celebrated. However, many of the pagan festivals from the Dacians and Romans continue to live on to this day as little traditions. In Romania, Easter is celebrated a little apart from Easter in Spain, as the Orthodox Church bases its dates on the old Julian calendar, created by Julius Caesar. I said in Latin. I mean Julius Caesar. I read in Latin, that's my bad. In Romania, Easter is celebrated a little apart from Easter in Spain, as the Orthodox Church bases its dates on the old Julian calendar, created by Julius Caesar, instead of the Gregorian calendar used by the Catholic Church. But all of the same celebrations are followed. Palm Sunday, called Duminica Florilor, where churchgoers receive branches that they hold throughout Mass, and once they return home, place next to or below their icons at home. Good Friday, or Vinerea Neagră, where in Romania, it's usual to read the 12 Evanghelii, or Gospels, the day before, and place a life-size crucifix in the center of the church the day of. Then, of course, Easter, which is also a massive celebration in Romania. Typically, everyone will wear traditional clothing from Dacian times called ies, and will paint eggs in folk designs, that they will then compete with each other to see whose egg doesn't break when they get hit together. One person will hold their egg underneath, while the other holds theirs from above. The person whose egg is above will say, "Christ has risen." And then the person whose egg is on the bottom will say, "It is true, he has risen." Then the person on top will tap their egg against the other person's, until one egg has cracked. It can become a very competitive sport, as he whose egg lasts the longest is said to have the longest life. And whoever wins also wins the other person's eggs, so the winner also gets a feast of eggs. Romania, despite being an Orthodox country, uses the Roman Catholic date for Christmas, same as Spain, where some of the traditions include St. Nicholas Day, where on the 6th of December, Romanians polish their boots for St. Nicholas to leave them treats if they were good, or a stick that represents a beating stick if they were bad. I got Belgian chocolates this year, so I guess I was good. The slaughtering of the pig, the oldest Romanian Christmas tradition. On December 20th, every rural family gets together with some of their friends and slaughters a pig, where they begin prepping for the massive Christmas feasts. Every part of the pig is eaten, from sarmale to creier pane, with beefsteak de porc and more. Then, for the new year, it's tradition in Romania for children to create a flower branch called a sorcova and tap it on their parents' shoulders while chanting a wish for good health, where in return the parents give the children money. Then, the parents pick the children up, give them a baked bread crown, and raise them above their head, wishing them a long life in return. This tradition is among the oldest in the country and goes back all the way to the time of the Dacians, where the local Romans also picked up the tradition and carried it forward. I'd be remiss to not mention the Roman Apulum festival that takes place in Alba Iulia, a colony founded by the Romans in Roman Dacia, where for 4 days locals dress in traditional Roman and Dacian clothing and meet in the town center where they watch gladiatorial matches, partake in archery tournaments, perform traditional dances, and partake in a slave fair. Yeah, I just learned about this one. On a completely unrelated note, I will not be coming to school in May. I will be in Romania, for no particular reason. That's stupid, I should take that out. Both Spain and Romania had much influence in culture from the Romans. However, Spain, having been a part of the Roman Empire when it proclaimed Christianity the state religion, has lost many of the pagan pre-Christian traditions that it used to have. Of course, still having many, however, a great many of Spain's holidays are in some way related to Christianity. Meanwhile, Romania, which was abandoned by the Roman Empire before it adapted Christianity, and subsequently spent less time under a Christian state, still maintains much of its pagan pre-Christian traditions that both the Dacians and Romans brought prior to Constantine the Great's adoption of Christianity into the Roman Empire. In summary, the modern Romanian and Spanish people were molded in great part thanks to the Roman colonization of the Mediterranean. From their culture and religion to their language and history, it's all in great part thanks to the Romans. Although many of the pre-Roman attributes have managed to retain their existence even post-Roman colonization. For instance, the Iberian Peninsula was a patchwork of many different cultures, languages, and ethnicities, which can be seen today in Spain having many different regional identities, from the Castilians to the Galicians and Catalans, to the Basques and Asturians, to even the Aranese and Aragonese. Meanwhile, Romania, which was one group before the Roman conquests, maintains a unitary ethnic identity to this day, with even many Latin speakers outside of Romania adopting the name Romanian, as can be seen with the A-Romanians of Greece, the Istro-Romanians of Croatia, and the Vlachs of Serbia. But throughout, both countries can always trace their lineage back to the Roman Empire, and can find many similarities between themselves and other Latin countries in Europe, despite being a continent apart. Damn, it's done! Woo, baby! I don't have a voice anymore, man. I'm still sick. Oh, now I have to edit this? It's already 1 in the morning. Fuck me.